There's a TV show currently running on Showtime called Dexter that I think is pretty damn good. It's about a serial killer who hunts and tracks other serial killers and does so while being careful not to get caught. Outside of The Big Bang Theory, it's probably my favorite show on television. It came to my attention that the show is based off a novel that goes by the title of Darkly Dreaming Dexter, and even though the book's ending is very stupid, it was pretty good. So I checked out the second book, Dearly Devoted Dexter, and I loved it. So I checked out the third book, Dexter in the Dark. And it's one of the worst books that I have ever read in my life. A bit of backstory before we get started. Dexter's foster father recognized him as exhibiting the traits of a serial killer from a young age and trained him to only stalk and kill other murderers. Dexter calls the set of instincts and urges that drives him to kill his dark passenger. For his day job and also to act as a cover for investigating killers, Dexter works as a blood spatter analyst, doing forensics for the Miami Metro Homicide Department. His sister Deborah works as a police officer in the same department. Dexter also has a girlfriend named Rita, and as a result of a misunderstanding in the second book, Dexter and Rita are engaged. The book begins with Dexter hunting and killing a random murderer, and the reader quantum leaps into the perspective of a second killer who was intending to kill Dexter's target. This unknown no killer then seemingly vows to begin tracking Dexter. Later, Dexter gets called out to a crime scene where two teenage girls have been found burned to death and decapitated. As Dexter investigates the crime scene, his dark passenger seemingly disappears. The urges that he has felt for his entire life are silenced with nary an explanation. I'm not quite sure how the hell this is possible, since it's been established that the dark passenger isn't a separate entity. The dark passenger is just how Dexter personifies the urges he has to kill people. And then, I am not kidding here, nothing happens during the next 300 or so pages of the book. The next 300 plus pages are nothing but filler. Most of the rest of the book is spent with Dexter sitting behind his desk, blankly wondering what happened to my dark passenger. This single scene is repeated verbatim several times. Nothing happens during these scenes. Dexter doesn't analyze himself introspectively. We don't develop Dexter's character to see who he is without the passenger. All we do is read about Dexter sitting on his ass and doing nothing but think about why his dark passenger is gone. The protagonist sitting on his ass and thinking is literally the main story of the book. This book gets really damn boring really damn fast because nothing happens in it. Even in the book's subplots, nothing happens. Every now and then, Dexter and Deborah go off to interrogate people about the dead girls to try and find out who murdered them, but these scenes all fall flat for two reasons. One, the two murdered girls have nothing to do with the story. Two, so every time Dexter and Deborah go out to investigate the killer, we quantum leap into the killer's mind and find out how close or how far they are from finding him. This disarms any suspense or intrigue that this mystery plot has, because we know exactly how close or how far the characters are from finding the killer throughout the whole story. There's a subplot about a psychopathic wedding planner that Dexter has to put up with, but that plot goes absolutely nowhere because the guy gets randomly killed off screen. Or off page, whatever the hell you want to call it. There's a subplot about Deborah's boyfriend coping with being handicapped after the second book, but that plot goes nowhere until the fourth Dexter novel. The book is so desperate to have something happen that at random points in the story, Dexter gets the feeling that somebody is following him and a car chase ensues. There are about 5 utterly pointless car chases spread throughout this book that have no suspense or tension. The first and second books had 1 car chase each, but they had Dexter and Deborah chasing after the killer. Those chases were thrilling. These chase scenes aren't suspenseful and they contribute exactly nothing to the story. But the things that I've listed are the only things that happen in most of the book. 90% of this book is filler and the remaining 10% is bullshit. I'm going to tell you how the book ends, and I swear nothing that I am about to say has been exaggerated. Everything that I am about to tell you actually happens in the book. So here goes. Dexter eventually gets captured by the killer and he finally gets an explanation as to what the hell is going on. It turns out that Dexter's dark passenger is an evil spirit that possesses his body. Said evil spirit is the offspring of Moloch, an ancient pagan god. Moloch once made a whole bunch of children, but he soon regretted it and decided to kill all of his children, at which time his children fled into the bodies of other creatures to escape him. Moloch has since been hunting down these children by possessing and body-snatching the members of an ancient mystical cult that worships him, and hunting down the people that his children possess by using his servants as vessels. Dexter's dark passenger fled his body because it recognized the 2 murdered girls as a ritualistic killing by the cult. Moloch has been stalking Dexter the whole book because the evil spirit will return to Dexter's body once he has endured unimaginable pain and torment. Bullshit! 1. What the hell are evil spirits, body-snatching pagan gods, and an ancient mystical cult doing in a dark and gritty serial killer novel that's intended to be grounded in realism? Way to undermine the entire point of the Dexter series. 2. This book tells us that everything we know about Dexter is a lie. Dexter isn't a serial killer as a result of psychological trauma leading to flawed brain chemistry. He's evil because of an evil spirit that inhabits his body. Silly person, people aren't evil. Evil spirits are evil. 3. No, this is not a misinterpretation on my part. The book expects us to take all of this seriously. There's a scene in the book where Dexter and Deborah interrogate an anonymous, pointless minor character. They walk past another anonymous, pointless minor character on their way out, and the book jumps into the perspective of the killer to show that the second anonymous, pointless minor character is the killer. A few pages later, the second anonymous, pointless minor character turns up dead, and the book jumps back to the perspective of the killer, and the book says that the killer is now a different person. The book makes this twist indisputable. 4. This plot twist completely destroys the identity and character that Dexter has. It is demonstrated in this book that Dexter is completely useless and a completely different person without his dark passenger, so Dexter himself isn't really a character. It's the dark passenger possessing him who's a character. 5. Dexter briefly researches spirit guides and such earlier in the book amongst his sitting on ass and doing nothing, and the tone of the book implies that this is just crazy stuff that Dexter is doing out of desperation. Aside from those scenes which are meant to be dismissed by the reader, this twist isn't even hinted at earlier in the book. So, anyway, after the plot twist that made me scream angrily at the top of my lungs, Dexter escapes the cult, a lot of its members get killed or arrested, Dexter gets married to Rita, and as he's standing at the altar, literally on the last page of the book, Dexter contemplates a normal life with Rita, and the thought is so torturous to him that his dark passenger returns. Nice. Go out with a joke. It was the only part of this book that was tolerable! I can understand the premise behind this book. Let's analyze Dexter's character and personality without his need to kill. What's a serial killer like if you remove the serial killer aspect? The problem is that the book utterly fails to do these things. The book doesn't even attempt to explore Dexter's character without his dark passenger, and instead just uses the passenger's disappearance as a crappy mystery plot. Dexter in the Dark was so painful that I didn't read the 4th book, Dexter by Design, until an entire year after I read the 3rd book. So coming off an absolutely abysmal book, how does the 4th book stack up? It's better, but that's not saying much. The basic plot is this. Dexter tracks a new serial killer who displays his victims as artistic pieces. Dexter tracks and kills the guy, only to find out that he killed an accomplice to the actual killer. The entire time Dexter and the other killer are trying to track and kill each other, and the plot is very intriguing. Even though the book's main plot is pretty solid, just about every subplot in the book is a complete disaster. At the end of the 1st book, Deborah finds out that Dexter is a serial killer, and in this book she reveals that she can't handle the truth of Dexter's true self anymore. This is interesting since Deborah has known about Dexter for 2 books now and has been asking Dexter for help in investigations, but fine, she can't handle the truth. How does this subplot play out? It doesn't. Deborah gets stabbed earlier in the book, and she lies comatose in a hospital until the absolute end of the book. And then, to pile on top of the biggest cop-out of all time, Dexter makes frequent trips to the hospital throughout the book to waste even more of the reader's time. Dexter tracks down and murders the guy who stabbed Deborah, and his department's internal affairs group sends 1 officer and 1 lawyer to investigate Dexter. The officer gets killed off-page towards the end of the book, and the lawyer pretty much just shrugs and walks away once Dexter kills the bad guy at the end of the book. Oh yeah, the book's ending. The bad guy abducts Rita and takes her to an art show in Miami, where he straps her into the trap from one of the Saw movies and to lure out Dexter. How does he plan to get away with killing 2 people in a public place? Well, apparently the police can't touch him because it would interfere with his performance art and violate his freedom of speech. Excuse me, but, the law does not work that way! Freedom of speech means that I can believe in anything that I want and have any opinion or idea that I want and not get persecuted for it. It does not mean that I am free to break the law because it's how I express myself. I don't mind portraying the law as being fallible, but this is completely misrepresenting how the law works. Freedom of speech most assuredly does not mean that I can do whatever the hell I want so long as I call it art. And you know what the really screwed up thing is? The internal affairs officer finds out that the killer is going to execute Rita in public, and his reaction is something to the effect of, "Damn, that's a good plan. Police won't be able to touch him at an art show." The fact that even the police admit that he won't be persecuted for the public killing goes the extra mile in asserting that this is in fact how the law works. And it isn't. So, anyway, Dexter goes to the art show and finds Rita, but the killer jumps him and begins strangling him with a wire. And there's a large group of people just standing around and watching this all play out. We've got a tied up and gagged woman strapped into a jigsaw death trap while the man who put her there strangles her husband to death, and nobody thinks to intervene or call the police because they think it's an art show? I refuse to accept that the common man is that freaking stupid. Dexter eventually saves Rita and murders the bad guy with said group of people still watching, and the group of people applauds the show. Dexter just murdered a person! That guy is dead! How are people so dirt stupid that they think this is all a show? Internal Affairs conveniently decides to leave Dexter alone. Oh, and Rita? She's fine. No psychological trauma at all after being held hostage and almost being murdered by a serial killer. I don't know what the problem is, but Jeff Lindsay cannot write a decent ending to save his life. Even the first book, which overall wasn't that bad, was very nearly ruined by an overly stupid ending. The first book has Dexter tracking the ice truck killer, a murderer whose style is similar to Dexter's, except that the ice truck killer displays his victims. Towards the end of the book, the police get a video of the ice truck killer, and although they can't make out his exact features, he looks a lot like Dexter. Not only does Dexter's own sister turn on him and immediately believe him to be the killer, but Dexter himself believes that he is the ice truck killer. I shouldn't have to point out how stupid this is, but I'll do it anyway. No, you are not the ice truck killer! You're not a roaring drunk, you don't suffer from short-term memory loss, you're not a split personality, there is no remote chance that you are the ice truck killer! Get your head out of the gutter, you dumbass! It turns out that the real ice truck killer is Dexter's hitherto unknown twin brother. This plot twist worked in the television series because they built up to it and wove that twist into the story by establishing that Dexter's youth was shrouded in mystery and tragedy. In this novel, this bombshell is just dropped out of the sky with zero warning. Not only that, but the identity of the killer in this mystery novel turns out to be somebody that the reader didn't even know existed. Deborah gets abducted by the ice truck killer, and the action climax that ends the book is so rushed and muddled that I couldn't make sense of it if I tried. Everybody goes home happy, except for the reader who just got shafted. So that's the Dexter series in a nutshell. The first book is good but has a crappy ending. The second one is pretty good. Third is absolute garbage, and the fourth book is okay but has some glaring flaws. I haven't read the fifth book, Dexter is Delicious, and quite frankly I don't want to. 3 strikes, you're out.